You are looking good. You who are 3 steps above average. Hello, I'm Kendall Bryan Hunter. I'm author of this book, Consider My Servant Job. Great gift for New Year's. Study the Old Testament in Sunday school, so get a head start on the book of Job from the Old Testament. And this is the Eyes of Faith podcast, where I talk about events, issues, whatever interests me from the perspective of faith and the doctrine of Jesus Christ. So, first of all, the breaking news is that Elder or President Jeffrey R. Holland has passed away. My first encounter with Elder Holland is when he let me into Brigham Young University. I'm that old. I got a letter of acceptance from him when I got there. He had been retired, and I spent my time with Rex C. Lee, and by the time I graduated, had Merrill J. Bateman presided over the graduation ceremony. But that was my first contact with him. Over the years, of course, reading his conference talks, Christ of the New Covenant. I had a chance to, he's giving a lecture in the Mazer building at BYU, which is kind of where he belonged in higher education. So I got a copy and I was able to talk with him. It's kind of funny. My first name, Kendall, is actually an English name. There's a city in England, and I mentioned that, and he just got all really excited like he normally does. So he is with his beloved Pat right now. What that means next in seniority is Dieter F. Uchtdorf, so we can start calling him President Uchtdorf again for those of you who had issues with him being released from the first presidency. But man, what a life, what a good man. He touched people's lives for good, and I'm a beneficiary of it, be it through the university work, through the church work, or through just him being a wonderful person. So cheers, Elder Holland. Another breaking news, I saw the movie Avatar, Fire and Ash. It's fun to look at, but it's just the same movie as the last one. One thing I noticed, a lot of matriarchy in this. Pay attention to that. I may do a podcast about it, where we get these movie scripts written by a single liberal woman with a master's degree in gender studies. Okay, the lead story. I joined the NRA, also Gun Owners of America. That was my big project on Christmas Day, December 25th. I joined the National Rifle Association. Now, why did I do this? The short answer is Charlie Kirk. And I hadn't joined the NRA, and it was intentional on my part. First of all, I'm not a joiner. I'm not one of these other directed people. I don't need to... I don't get energy from a crowd. Some people do. And I can talk about that. People who tend to be left-wing tend to be people who need a crowd. That's where you get all these protests, march, and BNs, etc. Also, despite my last name, I'm not actually a hunter. My ancestors were, but not me. But this is why I chose not to do it for so long. I'm very active in politics as a citizen rather than an office holder. And you understand that if you get into politics, you just have to join certain clubs. You have to belong to certain groups. It's a bit like, if you remember Sinclair Lewis's Babbitt, where he joins all the fraternal organizations just to network for his business. You have to do the same thing. If you're left, you join the ACLU. If you're black, join the NAACP. You join Amnesty International. And of course, if you're Republican, you have to join the NRA. And so what I by not joining it for so long, I just wanted to make a concession. So when I dialogue with people who are Democrat, 2 things I'd bring up. It's like, no, I'm not a member of the NRA. And yes, I actually have voted for Democrats. I'm not locked into my political party. And this is even before the first presidency counsels us to not vote straight party tickets. So when you're talking with someone, it's like, I'm not a member of the NRA. I have voted for someone who's not a member of my political party. That creates a level of credibility. It's like, that's someone you can work with. I'll at least talk with you and feel that I've had a fair conversation with you. You're liberal, but I'm not a member of the ACLU. I support civil liberties, but there's political aspects to it, sort of the extremism. So I did that, but it just hit me thinking about things. It came to sharp focus with the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. The first one, the ear assassination. They had a second one where they actually caught the guy beforehand. And then, of course, with the Charlie Kirk thing. And I always wondered, we needed a martyr to energize our party. If you take Trump out, you lose his effectiveness. Now, of course, he has negatives. There's a principle in ethics called the double effect. You get Trump's good effects, and you get his bad effects. And the good effects outweigh the bad effects, or something you're willing to put up with. But we needed a martyr. So if you took Trump out, we'd lose his effectiveness. But Charlie Kirk, that hit the youth. All of his fans are going to remember it for the rest of their lives. The same way the baby boomers remember the Kennedy assassination, the same way that we remember 9/11 or the Space Shuttle Challenger, just one of these moments, or even the assassination attempt on Reagan. I was actually homeschooled. I was sick that day, so I was home from school. So I remember my dad coming rushing in, and he came home for lunch. Then a few minutes later, he came rushing in and said the president's been shot. My parents, who lived through the Kennedy assassination. Yeah, we're getting hunted. We're getting killed. They're trying to kill us. Two impeachments didn't work. Well, Trump's a fascist. Two impeachments didn't work. So what's left in your arsenal? Sigmund Freud and the death instinct. Which party has a death instinct? Abortion, euthanasia, and assassination. So the death instinct. Where's the death coming from? Death eaters. We're seeing a breakdown reminiscent of the Jaredites and the Nephites. So pay close attention to that. The end game of both the Jaredites and the Nephites, and pay attention to the Gadiantons, the third-party actor. We're given a very obvious model about what's going to happen in the last days. President Nelson's dying words were, get ready for the second coming because time is running out. So pay attention to the Book of Mormon, even though we're studying the Old Testament now. News blips. Utah's longest-serving female legislator to step down after 26 years. This is from KSL. Representative Carol Spackman Moss, Democrat Holiday. Utah's longest-serving female legislator won't run for re-election in 26. Now, you notice the focus, the framing. When it's a man, it's just longest-serving representative, but then they highlight the female aspect. What's the subtext? When a woman does it, it's something special because she's a woman. When a man does it, it's just bland, beige, normal. Why do men get sort of the bland, beige treatment, but women are set apart as being special? Now, we know there's been a difference of history. I'm familiar with the Constitution, the women's suffrage movement. I do have a degree in history. But what's going on where it's both longest serving plus female? Why do you need to have the female in there if there's a gender equity involved? Is gender a social construct? Okay. Another news blip. Romney said tax the rich. Now, I voted for him. I knew what I was getting into. I knew it was about it. He provided a little bit of balance to Mike Lee. I'm appreciative of the opposition in all things. You have a conservative Republican and a liberal Republican. You get opposition in all things. The problem is when you say tax the rich, you're like, what are you sounding like AOC? Okay. When you say tax the rich, first of all, the rich are already taxed at 50%. There's a clip I saw from Bill Maher, and he's talking about that. You say tax the rich, like, well, we already are. That's why the Beatles wrote that song, The Taxman. I think it was a George Harrison song. Yeah, the Beatles, these young kids, are making all this money. Then when they get their statements, like, see how much of their money is going to government, and of their money is going to government. You get the song The Taxman by the Beatles. So here's an idea. How does this sit for you? Suppose we had to add a box to our tax return. You can donate to the presidential election fund. But what about apply $5 to paying down the principal on the debt? Think about it. So it's voluntary. Or you go to a website, like you have the Salvation Army, United Way, these reputable Red Cross, these reputable charities. You can make donations on there. Why can't we just set up a website that says, okay, let's make a donation to pay down the principal on the national debt? Voluntary act. Do what you want to do. Kind of like the giving machines. There's no coercion involved. Why does there need to be coercion to a group of people that are already being taxed at 50%? Governor Romney, Senator Romney, Brother Romney. It doesn't have to be coercive. It can be voluntary. There's ways around it. Think voluntary. You see those clips on X with Nick Shirley? Somebody just popped up out of nowhere with the Somali fraud. Just his phone and a couple of other people and knocking on doors. Okay, you're a daycare center. Where are the kids at? And the response is always, you're racist, as an avoidance tactic. It's very easy to uncover, and why the denial. There's a DEI mind lock involved. DEI mind lock. Mind virus, mind lock. Something's just freezing up our thought process. What's stopping people from thinking? Donald Trump's name. It seems to be everywhere. Kennedy Center now, the Trump Kennedy Center. Donald Trump wants to name battleships after himself. This megalomaniac. Well, when John Huntsman does it with his cancer centers, we don't seem to have a problem with it. But when Trump does it, there's a problem. Why the double standard? You can raise a concern, but is there a double standard involved like Jim Crow? Is this a Jim Crow double standard involved? Criticizing Trump's name and John Huntsman. Trump, Nigeria, and Venezuela. We're flexing our muscles like Teddy Roosevelt did. Comment on this is this recollection. This is from Mosiah Hancock. Now, Joseph Smith said something. Mosiah Hancock remembered it as what I'm going to read. There's possible for some corruption and misremembering. So put a little caution. This is, you have something green, yellow, and red. So this is I categorize this in a yellow category. But Mosiah Hancock remembers Joseph Smith saying, the United States will spend her strength and means warring in foreign lands. An observation. Of course, we need to have a robust self-defense. Read the Federalist Papers about it. You tend to avoid attack if you don't project strength. That's something that when someone becomes president, one of the first things they have to do is have to blow up something to show that they're strong. Same thing with Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan really scared the Soviets because they knew he was a man of his word. When you had the air traffic controllers go on strike, and he said, "Okay, you broke your contract, you're all fired," and that laid down the law. And you have all these insults, the cowardly enablers, battered spouse syndrome, who don't want to take the hard line that needs to be taken. Not surprising news. David Rosado graphic that's been floating around, how they have looked at universities. I posted a link to the rabbit hole that they showed the breakup of Democrats to Republicans at top universities. Once again, the mind lock. It's not surprising. We already knew this. In his book, Slouching Towards Gomorrah, Robert Bork said this. He said, I was one of two Republicans on a faculty of about 45 at Yale. When it was proposed that we hire a man who might possibly have been a third, he was rejected, one faculty member remarking that he would tip the balance. 2 out of 45, a third one would tip the balance. Mind lock again. Mind lock. Mind virus. So this is the dead week, my favorite week of the year between Christmas and New Year's, where you don't have anything going on. So the 25th, you're doing your Christmas stuff. 26th, you're recovering. And so you have this couple of days where there's nothing really much going on, unless you're planning a New Year's party. So you're a little hectic. But yeah, this is the deadest week of the year. But it's the best week of the year for planning, where you sit down and you look at the new year and you make the goals. Okay, what do I want to accomplish? What medical appointments do I have? What vacations do I have planned? What books do I want to read? What books do I want to write? Podcasts, what podcasts do I want to listen to? We have a start doing, but what about a stop doing? Priorities and posteriorities. Okay, what's some of the stuff? The ABC priorities. What do we categorize in the C3 priorities? Stuff I need to stop doing to make my life better. Decluttering your life is also important. So, life some pointers. Number 3. First of all, an overview. There's a saying that good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment. It takes experience to develop time and experience to develop good judgment. So I don't claim to be morally superior to anyone or to have all the answers. And this is just some experience I've had over the past 55 years of life. This is not the answer to everything, but it's some things I found helpful. Maybe they'll be helpful to you. Remember them and pass them along to someone else who might find these things useful. You can be an agent of change as you relay this information that could help someone, you can make a difference in someone's life. So, first point is comprehensive life management. And like I said, this week is a good time to get your act together, get things together. Get your papers ready for filing your taxes next year. There's hints that we're going to get some really big returns. We may get a $2,000 check on top of our tax returns. We don't know what's coming, but yeah, for America, 250 might be a good year. You're getting yourself out of debt. What habit do you want to break? So, comprehensive life management, that may sound scarier than it really is, but comprehensive life management is just dealing with all aspects of life. You have time management, you have money management, you have career management, you have personal management, personal development, spiritual management, what's your relationship with God and to your fellow man like. Now, you notice something. If someone's very good at managing time, they're usually very good at managing money. It's the same principle. You have a scarce item, a limited item with alternative uses, your time or your money. What's the optimal use, considering who you are? It's the same character attribute, and so we're developing a good character. This goes back to my discussion on human nature a while back. What's your view on human nature? If you got a question about good character, what it means, get a copy of William J. Bennett's book, The Book of Virtues. That's a good place to start. That's actually a book written for kids, so it should work for adults. Calendaring. Now, here's another pointer, calendaring. I said several times, calendaring gives you a game plan, so you have the initiative in life. You're not constantly reacting to other people's emotions or their circumstances. So I use this Franklin planner right here. And what you have is you have a year. This is a portable calendar, so I don't want things to tip out. But you see, this is for 2026, where I have it 12 things blocked off. And let me take it out, and so you have like dentist appointments, conference, when I have a vacation, 2026. So I know what I know what I'm doing. And then on the back, you have 2027. 2028. So I'm thinking 3 years into the future. Ladies, do you wish your man would think 3 years in the future? So you're just not living life by wing and a prayer. Of course, you do things in pencil. I use a mechanical pencil. Things come up, plans change. Sometimes you schedule a dentist appointment, but then you have a funeral, so you can reschedule the dentist appointment. Do it in pencil. Life happens. Trips to the pharmacy or the chemist for those in the United Kingdom. Just the key is to have a game plan in place first. That gives you a skeleton and a spine to work with that you can adjust and reshape to emerging circumstances. So once you do planning, how do you prioritize? There's something called a time management matrix. It was popularized by Stephen Covey. Remember this book that you should have bought if you don't own it already? Get your life together instead of being a ping pong ball ricocheting around the room. It was called, Stephen Covey calls it quadrant true management. Sometimes goes by the name of the Eisenhower matrix. This quote, maybe it's attributed to him. You know, these things get attached to people, but it's a true principle regardless who said it. The quote goes, I have two kinds of problems, the urgent and the important. The urgent are not important, and the important are never urgent. So here's a diagram of it. This is 7 Habits. There's different versions of it. Hit the used bookstore if you're on a tight wad. So you look at that, and so you have the 4 quadrants, 1, 2, 3, 4. So quadrant 1 is urgent and important. That's like, and quadrant 2 is urgent, not important. Quadrant 3 is not important, but urgent. Quadrant 4 is not important, not urgent. And the productivity happens in quadrant 2. So quadrant 1, that's important and urgent. Crises, pressing problems, deadline-driven projects, emergency room visits, trips to the pharmacy, funerals. Not urgent. Prevention, relationship building, recognizing new opportunities, planning, recreation, investing in career management and study, reading those good books you wish you had read, stuff that's related to your job, but also stuff that's just personal edification. So urgent and not important. That's quadrant 3. Interruptions, some calls, some mail, some meetings. Excuse me, I just had to cough when we said meetings. Proximate pressing matters, popular activities. Not important, not urgent. Trivia, busy work, some mail, some phone calls, time waster, pleasant activities, doom scrolling, mind rot. This was written before he had the internet, or the internet was necessary. So here's this graph, and you can kind of find it on the internet. But you look at where you place stuff, and it's right here. You do things that are important but not urgent. Hitting the gym, that is not urgent, but it's very important. Brushing your teeth, that's not urgent, but it's very important. Scripture study. It's interesting, you see all these problems of people who say they don't have time to go to church or to temple or to do their ministering or to study the scriptures. It's the same. Yeah, you actually have time, you're just not managing it properly, and you're using that as an excuse. So when I do planning, what I do is I have my bookmark here. And so at the top, I grabbed the wrong bookmark. Sorry, it's just, like I said, I do this on the fly. Got one of these polished ones that feels a little bit phony to do these edited, polished with a theme song. And, here's my subscribe. So what I do is, right here, I have the quadrant 1 at the top, quadrant 2. So this is like appointments, quadrant 3, you'll go see Avatar, do your budget. And I have the highlights of the week. And then I have, this is sort of the church stuff here. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then on the planner, it's the planner focuses, it's the day of the 27th. That's when I'm filming this. So you get a week guide, the priorities, so you have the week highlights, and then you have the actual day. Although a lot of these planners, too, is what they do is they'll have a monthly thing. So you write monthly. So you have the year planning like I showed you, you have the monthly, you have the weekly, and then you have the daily. That keeps you focused. Things happen, but that saying about even a dead fish can swim downstream, that applies to time management. So this is Franklin Covey planners. I don't work for them. I don't get a kickback. I'd love to work for them. I actually tried working for them, and things didn't work out. The company's going through some transitions where they licensed out their planners, and Covey just focuses up on leadership training. But get this after you purchase my book, please. Covey has plenty of money. I'm struggling here. I mean, think about how better this podcast would be if you like, shared, subscribe. So here's a tip: how to break off a conversation with a talkative person. Work, church, public transportation. For me, it depends upon the mood and what I'm doing. I'm not really talkative. I'm not one of these people who's a social butterfly. First of all, sometimes you have to avoid this person. I have there's a person at work who on January 6th, he had an outburst, and it worked its way up to human resources, and I got questioned about something, and that's one where you just make the problem go away. I should mention that. It's one where he may have said some stuff that could have been actionable, legally actionable, but the best thing is just make the problem go away. And that's actually a good strategy, so you save your strength. But you have a talkative person. Avoid the person if you can. If it's a situation like a boss or a coworker, then you have to plan ahead. Realize, say to yourself, I'm going to have to, this person's talkative, and I have to interact with him. So you need to come up with something to say, and just keep things going and have that right in the back of your mind. Kind of like when you go on a date, you have to come up with some conversation points so you're not boring the gal. She ends up talking about her pantyhose. So if you need to break off this in a sneaky way to do is pick up your phone and look at, said, I got this text. I need to break this off. But that's not quite honest, but you understand that it's not precisely honest, but the person's abnormally talkative. Another way to do this is, I apologize, I need to break this off. I do have another matter I have to take care of. I have to get back to work. There's another thing I can doing. We can pick up this conversation at some point in the future, and that's a little bit more polite, where you leave it open for a future conversation, because people are assets, they're not liabilities. The opposite is we have a talkative person. What's the opposite is how to break the ice with someone. And I think this comes from Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. These are classics you heard of. They're worth a read. Public Library, Overdrive, buy them at the used bookstore. So how to win friends and influence people? Well, you're at a party or a church meeting or something. Just show up to a person that you think would look like to be a good person to talk to. Say, hello, my name is such and such. What's your name? Okay, tell me about yourself. Leave it open-ended. Don't ask about work or family, because you could be single or divorced or going through a divorce, or they're getting fired, or they've been laid off or something. But get them talking about a hobby or interest. Get them talking so that you're going to learn something, and it's going to be helpful dealing with this person, but also with a sort of overall life experience. You could use it in another circumstance. You might even find a new interest or a new hobby. So if the person keeps talkative, you can use the break off technique that I used. Another thing to say is, what's the most important thing I need to know about you? And that's another way to do that. So that's how you introduce yourself. It's funny, because I had a friend of mine who, out of the blue, they had moved to Idaho, and they just happened to show up to the church meeting at random, and were able to connect again. And he was very good about this, shifting the conversation about me, which I don't like doing. I don't like talking about myself, but it was perfect modeling for me, and I'm glad I had that experience. You can know something, but when someone models it, it's actually a great experience. Okay, I know most of the people are in their 50s or 60s, so you have kids or grandkids. So pass this along to Gen Z, Gen Alpha, mostly for college students. How do you choose your major? Think of, in case if you're older, you want to go back to school and get another degree. How do you know which degree you want to get? First of all, a lot of works will pay for them, have tuition reimbursement. But how do you choose your major? First of all, this is something as a parent you need to talk to children when they're in elementary school. It's intentional, proactive parenting with foresight. Intentional, proactive parenting with foresight. You've raised the kids. Say, okay, look, you're living here at home, but at some point you're going to leave the nest. You're going to blossom. You're going to be on your own. You're going to have to go to school and be able to support yourself and carry on this circle of life type thing where you have your own children. Part of it is learning how to make money so you can support a family and support yourself. We don't want you leaving at 18 and with a high school diploma, no idea what's going on. Plus, you have to make all these complex decisions when you're 18 or 19, and we just don't want to throw you out of the house, and do that incrementally over the decades. So instead of making all these decisions at once when you're 18, you start thinking about it over the years. So you don't do this sort of female Bridget Jones passive aggressive. Well, you should have known. You should have read my mind. I don't see why you didn't understand that you're going to leave the house. Programs like the Merit Badge program of the Boy Scouts is a way to look into different career things. When I got my merit badges, I tended to cluster them around some things that interest me. Astronomy and space exploration, aviation, nuclear energy. I never got to read. I think there's a reading merit badge. I didn't get it. There's also a scholarship merit badge. I should talk about reading an encyclopedia in 1 year. I mean, I may do that sometime next year. When I turned 50, I read an encyclopedia in 1 year, and I would have liked to have done it when I was, 13 or 14. But I could have piggied that onto the Boy Scout thing. It's one of the things we were focusing on, Boy Scouts and camping tricks, and my inclination would be to read an encyclopedia, and so that's why I had to put it off for so long. But there's a way to piggyback things. That's another skill set. How can you piggyback things? That's a thing where you're clustering things around your interests. That's a good tactic that helped me in college. So I figured it out as a kid, but when I was talking with the head of the history department at BYU, he gave me some advice. It says, when you take your elective classes, have them buttress what you want to do in history. Very good advice. Helped me out, and that's partially how I got to have a minor in political science, was because of that advice. So look at what your major, decide on major. What do you want? What do you do in your spare time? What do you like doing? What would you if you didn't have to worry about room and board? What would you do for fun and find a way to monetize that? Anyway, time to get the lights going. It's getting a little bit dark. So you think of a cathedral with a flying buttresses. Once you decide your major, then you have these classes support it. So I took like a ancient life forms, which is an evolutionary class, and I took a bunch of political classes. Another way to figure out what you're doing is just start talking to people. Have sort of a career night at church. People do different things. Follow people on social media. Look at videos that they put out. Get a feel for what it's like to doing a career, what it's like to be a writer. It's interesting because everything is just topsy-turvy right now. Everything's in commotion with the AI. That's just a big game changer. You know, the internet revolution, how Stephen King got broke into the writing industry is completely different than how you do it now. Finding a mentor. J. Michael Straczynski wrote a book, I think it was called Becoming Superman. And it's interesting. He was very good about finding mentors, finding people to teach him, to train him. And he got, since he was very intentional, he got lucky. You know, he made his own luck. Find out what you do in your spare time. Find out another thing is your personal comparative advantage, you know, your unique point of sale, something that you can do very well that no one else can do. This sort of to call this what's your talent, what's your superpower, but a comparative advantage, that's more of an economist term. I think it's a more helpful term. I actually like it better than superpower. That's more of a parlor game thing. But what are you good at? And there's a way, figure out a way to monetize it. Also, another thing to think about is when you choose your major, think about opposition. M. Scott Peck, M. Scott Peck, who wrote Road Less Traveled, talk about where his dad had certain plans for him, and he had to confront his dad saying, no, this isn't working for me. Rush Limbaugh always talked about how his parents never really quite understood what he was doing on the radio. You know, his dad was convinced the only way to success is education, to get a law degree. You know, all of Rush Limbaugh's family are lawyers, but he was the only one who wasn't. He actually was richer than all of them and more influential. And that's another skill to develop, is dealing with resistance when you're following a good game plan. Sometimes resistance is a warning signal that you're on the wrong path. Here's another thing to do: add skills to your skill set. Jesus Christ talked about the parable of the talents, how the master gave the people 5, 3, and 1, and told them to multiply it. And when he came back, he said they were able to double it, except the guy with 1 talent. And the master says, "Hey, look," he gets on his case and says, "Look, you could have at least put this in the bank and collected interest off it. But since you're just so sloppy and lazy about it, I'm going to take yours and give it to the one that has 5." But so you have that as a background. Now, one way to approach life is just to say, okay, what's my 5 talent area? Some people are like it. There's actually people out there who have a passion and they actually end up doing it. I had a mission president, and he mentioned, he always knew he was going to be a lawyer. I think his dad may have been one of these multi-generational lawyers. Back home, the stake patriarch is, I think, a 3rd-generation dentist. But so some people have strength that are really obvious and they go that direction. But think about this. Suppose you develop 1 talent in one area. You have 5 talents, or you have 1 talent in one area, another talent in another 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 area. So you have just 1 talent, but 5 of the talents in different areas. For example, I have a degree in history and a minor in political science. And I mentioned this, I have a friend, 3 degrees in psychology, so she just thinks in circles. But I say, look, there's a historical toolkit, and there's some things that a political science toolkit. I'm able to put those together, part of with this podcast. Let me skip over that. What do you do when your weaknesses counteract your strengths? I served my mission in Portugal. I was not very good with language, and my Portuguese professor made this comment. He said in the class, I was actually worse with language, but I was the best with culture. And he said that, I sensed it, but I realized this creates a bit of a deadlock. So how do I do a workaround with that? So one is the strategy I talked about. Many one talent strategy. So I developed 1 talent here, 1 talent there, 1 talent there, learn other languages at the 1 talent level. And it actually works, makes you a good asset. So of course you're not going to be super stellar, but it does give you an advantage having a not just a narrow. You sort of think of New York City, how it's very vertical, and you have Los Angeles, which is really spread out. That's how you deal with the population. You build up or you build out. So this is sort of the build out strategy. Um, what do you do when a person giving a presentation is doing badly, or you show up to Sunday school class or a quorum class, and the instructor was doing a bad job? I remember we were getting some training, and bless their souls, I'm glad these people took the assignment, but they had minimal understanding. So first of all, we recognize that people aren't perfect, and they may have inadvertently gotten over their head. They got handed something at the last minute. I actually had to do that once. Someone got handed a stink pile, and they came to me for help, and I just wasn't in a position to help them. So in that case, what you do is you make sure you volunteer for the next time to even things out. So if they're doing a bad job, you don't get mad at them. You congratulate them. Said, "Well, I'm thank you for taking this assignment to teach us this thing. This is a learning experience for everything." You start asking questions in a non-accusatory sense. Would it help if we did things this way? This may not. This may not be you. The problem could be with me. Develop the quality of humility and self-esteem. You have to sit through it sometimes and do some search online. If you're not getting trained properly, I bet you can find training online. I had this happen at the hospital. There's some changes with dysphagia diets, and I've received zero training. So as a responsible human, I said, look, I need to learn this stuff. So I just watched a bunch of YouTube videos as compensatory training. I probably got trained better. What do you do when you have to file a complaint? I had a bad order on a book, and so I had to file a complaint with them, or gives us some feedback, and never do it in accusatory fashion. So you have to file a complaint. Never say, you guys screwed up, I want my money back. Say, here's the problem, what options can you give me? That keeps it pleasant. That's always worked for me. You polite, it's a reciprocity thing. You be polite and they'll be polite back to you. It keeps it open because they might have some other options. They could say, oh, just keep it, we'll just return the money. That actually was what happened. What happens when your day is a total breakdown, a 13-car pileup? I had this happen I think last week. Some of the orders hadn't shown up. Actually, this happened a couple of times. And I was running an hour and a half late, maybe about 2 hours late. Had to spend time looking for a cart I use for delivering things. And then some of the orders were just very large, so I was very worn out. And some people called back and they needed a second order. And it was just running late in this perfect storm. So first of all, realize days like this happen. Pay attention, it's not a pattern of behavior. If there's a pattern going on, they need to escalate it. It's what you do when you get overwhelmed like that. Just take 5 minutes, take 5 extra minutes in the bathroom to relax, find your center, deep breathing exercises. You'll eventually work through it, and I was able to catch up with it. There's a saying that a pint can't hold a quart. If it's holding a pint, it's doing the best they can. Just always be hyper polite when you're confronting people. Let's see. Let me skip over that. Okay, we're at about 38 minutes. Here's the last life's pointer I'd pass on. Make it a habit to apologize. Now, not sort of the sickly thing. I'm so sorry I did this. Make it say, this is my mistake. I'm sorry. I was one at fault here. This is just to admit it. It's good psychology. It's mental hygiene. It's healthy to do that. You do that, you're an easier person to work with. People will want to work with you because you're not lying to cover yourself. Said, okay, I'm sorry. This is my fault. It's a great feeling because you're being honest about your shortcomings and your mistake, and that's the first step in correcting the problem. So we're at 40 minutes, a little bit longer than I would have wanted to go, but I was just spouting off some experience, and I apologize if I got some repetitive in there, was babbling a bit. So here's the e-chapel, the e-devotional. What's your favorite Jeffrey R. Holland talk? Mine is a talk. It's his book, Christ in the New Covenant. I remember at BYU he explained how he wrote it, and I guess that'd probably be the talk. But what's your favorite talk? Post it in the comments below. Pass it on. Let's celebrate the life of Jeffrey R. Holland. Well, it's dark. We're at 40 minutes, and that's the passing scene. Seen with the eyes of faith.